never even got his autograph.
This is Central ITV and news from ITN.
From ITN News at 10 with John Suchet.
Labour in crisis as Mandelson resigns his post. Millionaire Robinson goes too as the row rages on. The Brighton bomber heading home for Christmas. And Branson on course for a New Year landing. Good evening. This is a special edition of News at 10 to bring you the details of the biggest upheaval in the government since it came to power, a day that shook Labour to the core. This evening, Downing Street has two ministerial resignations on its hands. Peter Mandelson, the man who helped invent New Labour, and Geoffrey Robinson, the man whose house loan brought them both down. Peter Mandelson had a reputation for spotting trouble in Labour's path, but he never saw his own problem coming. He said tonight, an alarm bell should have gone off in my head. It didn't. Our political editor, Michael Branson, reports.
Tonight, Peter Mandelson came back to the house which has cost him his job. The house for which he needed that loan from Geoffrey Robinson, the house where a well-wisher had left some flowers. We now know that when he'd left that house this morning, Peter Mandelson had already decided to go. That's what he told Tony Blair late last night. The Prime Minister said sleep on it. Shortly after 10 this morning, Peter Mandelson called Chequers to say, I am going. The Prime Minister didn't stop him. A deeply shocked Mr. Mandelson then wrote to his old friend, I can scarcely believe I am writing this letter to you. I do not believe that I've done anything wrong or improper, but I should not, with all candour, have entered into the arrangement. Clear emotion too in the Prime Minister's reply. You will know better than anyone the feeling with which I write to you. It's no exaggeration to say that without your support and advice, we would never have built New Labour. By mid-afternoon and the last interviews, the brutal changeover had already started. Stephen Byers given Mr. Mandelson's job at DTI, Alan Milburn replacing Mr. Byers as Treasury number 2. The clearing of the ex-Trade Secretary's belongings had begun. The cards, the other personal belongings packed away. This is explanation of his going.
New Labour was elected saying that after all this time, all these years of falling standards in public life, we were going to make a real difference. And therefore I think for this government in particular, we not only have to act properly and behave properly, as I believe I have done, but on all occasions be seen to act properly. And I feel that as a result of my actions or the way in which they were presented, people would have concluded that we had fallen below the standards, and I had fallen below the standards expected of this government, and I felt it necessary to pay a very big price for that.
People have expressed amazement that you, as they put it, the master of spin, didn't see the risk in perhaps even having so huge a loan, point one, and having taken it from Geoffrey Robinson, point two.
I think I didn't think about it, didn't think it through, didn't focus on the implications, the way in which it would look to the public in the way that I should have done, and in that sense it was imprudent. Where I went wrong, I think the misjudgment that I took was in not taking the precautions, if you like, against the time when this became public knowledge.
Yes, but there's the other point of the Code of Conduct for Ministers, which says that if there's any doubt at all, whether or not there's an inquiry going on with Mr. Robinson, you should have gone to the Permanent Secretary and at least sought his advice and said why you're not doing anything. Do you think you got that wrong now?
I think I did get that wrong, and what I should have done is, having stood aside, having made it clear to my Permanent Secretary and my officials that I wanted nothing to do with this inquiry, that it should be left entirely to officials, I should then, a little alarm bell should have gone off in my head, and I should then have gone on and said to my Permanent Secretary, look, by the way, I have this loan, I am the Secretary of State. People might put those two things together and may feel that, it's unacceptable. Now, I should have foreseen that,
well,
and I should have taken...
Explain now why the alarm bell didn't go off.
I can't explain, no.
Do you feel, in a sense, all this, that your enemies have won? You've got people, you know that there are people who don't like you very much out there. There's been, obviously, this leak to the newspapers about this inquiry. Do you feel your enemies have won?
No, I don't feel that my enemies have won. I feel that in taking the action I have, I feel that my reputation of my integrity have won, that the standards that the Prime Minister rightly insisted on in our government have won, and that the government's standing with the rest of the country have won. I think all those things are intact, and there is nothing more important to me than my integrity, nothing more important to me than the government's standing, and quite honestly, I'll pay any price to protect those things, and I think I have today in what I've done.
But does feuding between Mandelson supporters and Gordon Brown supporters lie behind all this? And most particularly, is the Prime Minister's official spokesman, here leaving the DTI this evening, now demanding the removal of Charlie Whelan, Mr Brown's spokesman, because of some involvement in this affair?
Now, you can't have it both ways. If you want to protect your sources and say this story's true because of that, I might throw some doubt about it, but if all you're saying is there's tensions between different groups in government, well, yes, there may well be tensions between different groups.
Tonight it's been confirmed that had he not resigned today, Geoffrey Robinson would have left government quietly after Christmas. He'd simply become too great a liability. His thoughts tonight?
Well, my thoughts are on getting home and having a nice Christmas, and I hope that'd be very good.
Do you accept that after events over the last 24 hours that your position now was untenable?
Well, I don't think I need comment on that. I've resigned and made clear the reason for resigning, and I think that's what I need to say.
The Conservatives say that the Prime Minister failed to act quickly enough.
We work on the fact that the ministers concerned have resigned. Geoffrey Robinson, after clinging on to office for over a year, bringing contempt upon the government. Peter Mandelson, after trying to do so, and alas, none of them or the Prime Minister recognising that wrong has been done. Peter Mandelson broke the rules.
But as Mr Blair reflects on all this at Chequers, we're told that he believes that what's happened is for the best, even to the point of seeing one of his closest friends for now destroyed. Michael Branson, News at 10, Westminster.
And live now to Michael Branson at Westminster. Michael, fevered speculation at Westminster tonight about who leaked the story of Mr Mandelson's loan. Where's the finger pointing tonight?
I can tell you that people right at the very top of government are very concerned about some possible involvement by Charlie Whelan in all this. And I should also say that Charlie Whelan has throughout denied any involvement. But you heard John Prescott there talking about the tensions between the various groups in government. It all goes back to the time when Gordon Brown did not become leader and Tony Blair did. And we know these tensions are there, and frankly they must be sorted out because they've been doing the government behind the scenes damage for a very long time now.
Well, Michael, damage, and as we reported, crisis. Can Tony Blair hold it together?
Well, he's obviously going to feel as bruised as anyone tonight. We also had Jack Cunningham tonight, the so-called enforcer, talking about a very bad day for government. Tony Blair, though, has got a lot of resources, reserves in these matters. I'm sure he'll pick himself up and punch his way through it. But it has been a very, very bad day for the whole government and for Mr Blair in particular, one of his closest allies. Not very high in the pecking order in the cabinet, I admit, Mr Mandelson, but one of his closest allies has had to go.
Thank you, Michael. Peter Mandelson had launched a media blitz when the story first broke, a round of interviews defending his position. It looked like he was trying to tough it out. So what changed? Paul Davis has been trying to find out.
What is clear is that sometime yesterday, Peter Mandelson, having embarked on a fierce defence of his own integrity and ultimately his political career, decided his position was no longer tenable. Many questions remain unanswered. But the master wheeler-dealer's decision to quit coincided with the emergence of more details about the purchase of his London home. The house in fashionable Notting Hill was priced at just under £500,000. The loan from Geoffrey Robinson was for over £370,000. Mr Mandelson then obtained a mortgage of £150,000 from the Britannia Building Society to allow him to buy the home. Like any borrower, Mr Mandelson would have signed a Britannia mortgage application form. In the final declaration, it asked the borrower to sign that I have not arranged any other loan, second mortgage or improvement grant in connection with the property. On yesterday's lunchtime news, Peter Mandelson was asked how he'd answered that question.
Did you put in £370,000 from Mr Robinson in that
I can
column?
assure you that I have filled in all my forms and in complete conformity with every requirement placed on me.
However, a few hours later, Mr Mandelson said he couldn't recall details of the application form, a claim he repeated when interviewed by ITN's Michael Brunson today.
I don't to be honest, recall exactly all the questions that were put to me or the way in which I answered them, and I'm sorry, I know this has become an issue.
Ed Nally, chairman of the Law Society's Conveyancing Committee, explained the potential seriousness of the issue.
The key question about the question of whether a criminal offence has been committed is the intention. If there was dishonest intent, and if that were capable of being proved beyond any reasonable doubt, which is the criminal test, then yes, there has been an offence of deception.
The Britannia Building Society say by law they are not permitted to release details of Mr. Mandelson's mortgage or that of any customer. Paul Davis, News at 10.
Peter Mandelson's love for the Labour Party has never been in doubt, sometimes unrequited though, among the grassroots. Tony Blair once said the modernisation of Labour would only be complete when the party learned to love Peter Mandelson. Today won't help. Joe Andrews looks at the man.
For Peter Mandelson, his resignation is the end of a dream, the dream of becoming a cabinet minister. He was appointed finally in July, but has survived just 5 months. His quick resignation stems in part from his intense loyalty to the Labour Party. His grandfather, Herbert Morrison, once Home Secretary, was one of the party's great fixers. And to his friends, Mandelson has called Labour his tribe and his religion.
Peter Mandelson lives and breathes the Labour Party. And I can't imagine a time when he won't be involved in the Labour Party. But I think that he'll probably be thinking long and hard about returning to frontline politics, given what he's had to put up with in recent months.
Peter Mandelson first emerged over 13 years ago when Neil Kinnock appointed him his media advisor.
There'll be no stage-managed US presidential-style conning of people, as the Conservatives go in for.
He began to transform the way Labour looked and sounded, gathering names like the Prince of Darkness and the King of Spin in the process. After he was selected for Hartlepool, he continued to be New Labour's central architect, with the landslide of '97 taking him to the heart of power. But, like his grandfather before him, Labour has always been equivocal about him.
Me and my mate Peter.
This autumn he was publicly described as gay on television, and now some believe he's fallen victim to the desire for greater transparency in public life.
Institutions are either obliged or themselves feel that they have to reveal very much more than was the case, say, a generation ago. And I think that politicians, because they live very much in their own world, they spend their time very much with other people of power and other politicians, simply haven't caught up with that.
He leaves not just his ministerial job, but also responsibility for the Millennium Dome. He was the driving force behind it. Now that falls to Heritage Secretary Chris Smith, and it, like Labour's other projects, must be finished without Peter Mandelson at the cabinet table. Joe Andrews, News at 10.
Peter Mandelson's constituents in Hartlepool are tonight still wondering what to make of the events of the last few days. It's about 250 miles from there to the now infamous house in Notting Hill, but worlds apart. Andrew Simmons has been in Hartlepool.
By tradition, Hartlepool is a working-class town. It was once one of the bedrocks for old Labour. Tonight there is some shock at the demise of a new Labour man who put the town on the map after becoming its MP in 1992. The evening papers came off the press with a message from Peter Mandelson to his constituents. It was given in a telephone interview with the editor, minutes after announcing his resignation.
He said he was sad, but he was at pains to make the point that he was still Hartlepool's MP. He wanted to tell the people of Hartlepool that he was still going to be representing them, that he would be doing that with equal enthusiasm, and he made the point that he would also have more time than he used to.
The newspaper carried out a survey amongst Hartlepool's Christmas shoppers. 57% said he had acted improperly, while a majority of 58% said he shouldn't have resigned. Opinion is divided sharply here over the constituency MP with a fashionable house in London.
The President of the United States is still in office after telling the nation a pack of lies. Mandelson hasn't told lies, so therefore why should he resign?
I'm not a fan of his, but I think that he's done quite well for the town, so it seems a shame.
I wish I knew someone who'd lend me £350,000 for a house as well.
And that last view is echoed by many in a town with one of the highest unemployment rates in the northeast, where all 15 houses in this street alone would cost less than Mr. Mandelson's London residence. He's always faced accusations of being an outsider here, but most of his critics say he's acted with honour. Andrew Simmons, News at 10, Hartlepool.
We have more of the day's news and sports still to come tonight, including the other resignation, how the pressures finally proved too much for Labour's wealthiest MP. Some of Northern Ireland's most notorious terrorists freed for Christmas. The FA chief's determination